Hey ladies, happy Friday. I wanted to jump on here really quick because I keep seeing this coming up in the thread, and Deborah told me I could jump on whenever I wanted, so I'm taking advantage of that. I'm Jodi Carlton, if you guys don't know me and you didn't see my last live. I have been a licensed therapist for like 20 years and a relationship coach for I don't know how long, but I also work a whole lot with folks who have Asperger's, so adults, and I have a child with Asperger's and been in my own relationships. But anyway, I want to talk about this narcissism thing because this is a word that's starting to crop up everywhere, not just in the Asperger's community. And narcissistic personality disorder is a very serious diagnosis, and it is not a word to be thrown around. Now, there are a lot of people who are jerks that are not narcissists. And those of us who are in relationships with Aspies, there are traits that seem similar, but they're really, really different. They're different because of the reasons behind what these behaviors are. And I don't have a long time today, and I didn't even plan this, but I pulled up some notes really quickly that I'm just going to throw at you guys, and maybe I'll do something that more in depth on this later. But basically, so narcissist, someone who is a narcissist has they're inherently insecure, but they have a very grandiose sense. They portray themselves as being larger than life, and a lot of times these men are very charismatic, very the life of the party, and that does not usually describe an Aspie. But narcissists love attention, and they love for people to pay attention to them and to affirm them and make them feel great about themselves, because that's where they get their sense of worth. So they have this exaggerated sense of self-importance, and they talk about themselves. They portray this sense of importance about themselves onto others. And they like to be recognized as superior at times, even when they're not. So sometimes narcissists will actually have trouble keeping a job because they're insubordinate, not because they're scatterbrained or because they can't follow through with instructions or they have social anxiety, but because they just flat out won't do what the boss tells them to do because they think that they can do it better, or they're constantly demanding recognition when they're not really, it's not warranted. So let's see, let me look at my notes here. They're also a lot of times just really preoccupied with these fantasies of how brilliant they are and how successful they are, and they're not very grounded about their actual talents or their actual abilities. They a lot of times they're very preoccupied with their appearance. So, and that is not an Asperger's trait either, right? Like the guy that I'm dating, I have to tell him, okay, look, you got 80s basketball shorts on. We're not going to dinner looking like that. And the thing is he's fine with that. He's like, okay, please tell me what to wear. And so, I've gotten into his closet and I'm like, this has got to go. This has got to go. This has got to go. You won't have that with a narcissist. A narcissist is going to have the perfect hair, he's going to have the perfect clothes, and he's going to look beautiful to the world because his image is super important to him. Okay? He needs constant admiration. Narcissists are also very entitled. Now, so they believe that they have a right to whatever. They'll park in the handicapped parking space just because they want to. And they feel like they get to do whatever they want. Again, folks with Asperger's can be very self-centered, but that's because they lack theory of mind. They have a difficulty understanding another person's perspective or point of view, and they're just kind of seeing life with blinders on. But they're not full of themselves at all. They have a rigid sense of right and wrong, and a rigid thinking sometimes, and that can be crazy making for those of us in relationships with them, but they're not full of themselves, okay? Something else about a narcissist is they will absolutely take advantage of others at will, and it doesn't bother them at all. They will use others to gain for themselves. I mean, you may have heard just the cliche of a used car salesman, someone who will absolutely rip you off to get the sale with a smile on his face and not care that you're going to get 2 miles down the road and your car is going to fall apart and there's no warranty. People with Asperger's are not like that. They again, they may have rigid thought processes, but they have a sense of, they have integrity, and they're not going to just take advantage of somebody just because they can. You may feel like you're being taken advantage of if you're constantly adjusting and accommodating to them, but they're not doing this just to take it. They're not expecting that of you just to take advantage of you. So this is another area which narcissists sometimes can seem, or Aspies can seem kind of like narcissists. Narcissists have this inability to, or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. And this is, I think, one of the biggest things that a lot of you are seeing in the men that you're with, because a lot of times folks with Asperger's can't recognize the needs of others. They don't know what, we have to really spell it out and be explicit with them. And some of you don't feel like it counts if you have to explain to them, but then others of you have told your Aspie over and over and over again what it is you need, and then they don't follow through, and then you feel hurt. And the thing is, there's usually a reason they don't follow through. Sometimes they have taken, they're not great at generalizing from one context to another. So if you told them what you needed in this situation, they can't generalize it to another situation that's similar. And for you, you're like, well, I've already told him this is what I want. And then you bring it up, and he's like, what are you talking about? You haven't told me this. It's because they're very literal, okay? They can't generalize from this moment to something slightly different. Whereas a narcissist just doesn't care about your feelings at all. Folks with Asperger's, they care how you feel, but they don't recognize it sometimes. They don't know how they don't know how to pay it. They don't know how to read you, because people with Asperger's don't pay attention to faces. They don't look at make eye contact. And so they don't recognize sometimes what someone's feeling. Now, empathy is another thing. And narcissists do not have empathy, and folks with Asperger's are known to not have empathy, but I actually, it's not that they don't have empathy, it's that they don't know how to communicate it sometimes. Folks with Asperger's absolutely can feel very much the energy that someone's giving off, but they don't necessarily know how to match that. Now that's what empathy is. Sympathy is recognizing what someone else feels. Empathy is matching that feeling. So your girlfriend calls you up and says, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out. My son got a D on his test. And your girlfriend's like, oh man, oh my gosh, that is worrisome. You tell your Aspie that, and they're like, okay, what needs to be done to fix it? And you're like, wait, don't you understand? I'm stressed about this. And they're like, yeah, okay. What needs to be done to fix it? There's no matching of the emotion. Or maybe you're stressed because your boss is, chewing you out at work, and you're like, can you believe what he said? And he's like, well, what did you do to make him mad? And you're like, oh my God, are you kidding me? You just asked me that? Your girlfriend would be like, oh yeah, that's just wrong. So your Aspie can see that you're stressed and frustrated, but he's not empathizing. In other words, he's not matching your emotion. But that doesn't mean that he's not seeing it. He's trying to problem solve. Well, what did you do to make him mad? Well, you're like, what the heck? Why are you asking me that? But he's probably trying to problem solve. He's like, well, what happened? And let's just try to fix it. So anyway, that's just a cursory breakdown of some of the things that narcissists are and Aspies are not. And I want you guys to some of you here may actually be with someone who's narcissistic and not Asperger's. I want you to be really careful with the labels, and really, because I know a lot of you have undiagnosed Aspies. I see that a lot. And I'm with an undiagnosed Aspie, but I've also got hundreds of hours of workshop training and education about Asperger's, and a lot of experience with diagnosed Aspies too, and a lot of experience diagnosing Asperger's. And so I feel confident that who I'm with is Aspie, but you guys be careful about the information you get on the internet, and talk to somebody who knows narcissism. Talk to a therapist or a coach, or message me, or talk to somebody who knows Asperger's, which is harder to do. But be careful with this narcissistic label. It's a very toxic, that person's a very toxic individual, and Asperger's can feel that way sometimes, but it's just a totally different thing. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. You guys have a great weekend. I'll talk to you again soon. Bye.